Hi everyone, thank you for having me. I'm here to talk about how remote work and digital nomadism is changing the world. So, здравствуйте. Я буду говорить русский язык, но очень плохо. Поэтому я думаю, что будет легче для всего, если я продолжаю в английском. Maybe some Russian later, if you're lucky. But yeah, my name's Asia. I'm from Hong Kong, which is actually really easy to remember if you think about it. I'm a digital nomad, and I don't know, since I've started at Toptal as a digital nomad, I think I've been to something like 23 countries this year. It's pretty cool. Before I started at Toptal, I'd lived in 8 different countries, and I realized that that was not actually very normal, and so I'm really happy that digital nomadism became a thing, and now this kind of lifestyle is becoming more mainstream. But yeah, so I'm the Europe community lead at Toptal. I'll explain what Toptal is in a minute, but basically, what does that mean? What's a Europe community lead? My job is to make the community that we have in Europe grow and achieve their professional goals, and just generally make them happy. I'm here for them. I help them out. It's a really nice job. And yeah, before that, I was working for TED Talks in New York. So I'm going to explain a little bit about Toptal. We're actually one of the sponsors, and we're an exclusive network of the top 3% of freelance engineering, designer, and finance talent. And we have this wonderful community all over the world. We have more than 100 countries, actually, and it's amazing because we're completely remote, and what that means is that there's no geographical limit on our talent. So you're working with the best and the brightest from around the world. It's really, really cool. So, some questions for you now. You've heard about me. Put your hands up if you've worked as a freelancer. Okay, nice, nice. Okay, that was most people. Well, not quite, half. Put your hands up if you've worked remotely. Okay, not that many. Okay. So hopefully you'll find this useful. I'm going to show you a remote freelancer in the wild. You're going to have to take this picture with a grain of salt. There was actually Wi-Fi up there, so she could have been working, but usually when you work, you're somewhere a little bit more stable. But anyway, take a look. What do we see? We see a computer. Very important for remote work. You have to have your tools. Good views. This is something I care a lot about. Because I travel so much, I go all over the world, and every day I try and take a photo of me working somewhere cool, somewhere interesting, and then I'm really obnoxious, and I put it online, and I show it off everywhere, and I'm totally proud. Just keeping it casual. So this is probably the most formal I will ever dress, and I love it. I don't know, when I was working in an office, there were so many times when I'd be a little bit uncomfortable with what I was wearing, or my shoes hurt, or I was too hot, or I was too cold, or maybe I was hungry. There were so many things, and when you're remote, you can wear what you want, you can eat when you want, and just be comfortable and focus on the work. So, she's winning. So, now you know what a remote worker looks like, I'd like to take you through some best practices. I think remote work can be a bit challenging for some people, but with effort, I think it really can work for everyone. So, first things first, know yourself. Have a think about your working style. Have a think about am I ready for this? And if you're not sure, maybe try and do a bit of part-time work. So keep your day job and do some freelance remote stuff on the side, see how you feel, get into the communication flow, that kind of thing. Think about the kind of hours you like to work. So are you an early bird or a night owl? This is actually really important, not just if you're a remote worker, actually. I've thought about it and I know how I like to work, so it helps me structure my day. But if you, for instance, and I know a lot of developers are like this, like to work from midnight till 4 in the morning, you need to be on a team that can accommodate that, right? I'm pretty boring. I just work 10 to 6. It's pretty normal. But I tend to do kind of the strategic thinking and the quieter stuff in the morning because I haven't had my coffee yet and I'm just waking up, and it's probably best I don't talk to people quite yet. And then in the afternoon, once I'm awake, once I'm alive, there's joy in the world, that's when I start talking to people and kind of connecting and doing all that kind of thing. So everyone's different though, but you have to know yourself. Productivity. This is something very important for a remote worker, because if you're working remote, you have a manager probably, but at the same time you really have to be self-directed. You have to make sure that you're doing stuff. Remote work is very results-oriented, but you have to kind of sit down and get those results. So that's definitely something to think about. And if you know you have productivity issues, come up with strategies for that before you embark on some remote work. A way to do this is to know your weaknesses. For some people, it's eating junk food. For some people, it's too much coffee. That's me. If I have more than 2 cups of coffee a day, I go completely mad. So I have to be really careful with it. Or for some people, it's social media, right? Yeah. That's definitely advice. And so if you, on your phone, you can actually check in your settings how much usage you have on various apps. I would recommend doing this with caution. Honestly, if I knew how much time I spent on Instagram, I'd probably have a heart attack. So, but I know that I get my work done, Instagram notwithstanding, so it's fine. But there's different methods you can do as well to kind of take you away from social media. So there's apps you can use that kind of put it on a timer so you don't use it. Or you can get, if you need Facebook for work, you can have a Facebook work account and then your private one, or same for whatever social media you have. Or you can go really hardcore and just delete the app from your phone. Which I've done sometimes. I'm like, no, delete. I'll deal with that later. And then the whole hassle of redoing it and putting in your password, it's a good deterrent and it stops you using it again. Ooh. Okay. Another good technique is the Pomodoro Technique. Does anyone know this? Yeah? Okay. It's really good actually if you kind of just need to get something done and get your head down. I'll explain it quickly. So basically you have a little timer that's shaped like a tomato, which is why it's called the Pomodoro Technique. You don't need the timer though. And what you do is you work in little sprints. So you have 25 minutes of work, 5-minute break, and then you write it down on a piece of paper. You do this 4 times, and then you have a much longer break. And it's actually pretty amazing for just getting stuff done. So I'd recommend that. So you've got your productivity in check. Now, have a think about where you like to work. So for me, I only discovered this when I went remote. I really like coffee shops. There's something about it, I don't know what it is. I think it's there's caffeine available and it's there if I need it, but I don't have to have it. There's kind of a low level of activity around me, so I'm around people, but they're not talking directly at me. Most coffee shops that I go to are adorable and hipster. Excellent opportunity to take photos to splash around the internet. You're getting an idea of what I like to do, right? So yeah, the downside of coffee shops is they can be noisy. So if you have meetings, especially if they're client-facing, you might not want to do that because it's not very professional if it's really, really noisy. What else? It's hard to find plugs sometimes, and sometimes the internet can be a little bit temperamental. It's always you're taking a slight risk unless you know that coffee shop well. But might be a risk worth taking. You can always use your phone as backup. Coworking spaces. This is another option, again with their pros and cons. It's nice because you're getting out the house, you're seeing people, that kind of thing. But they're not all they cracked up to be. It really depends. I was at a co-working space on Monday and the Wi-Fi was awful. Much worse than a coffee shop. And I was horrified because I was like, this is an important phone call. This is not a good look. So anyway, I had my backup plan, obviously, but it wasn't ideal and it was quite stressful. It was also really crowded. This happens too. And they were playing really loud music. So that co-working space was not ideal. They can also just be really crowded. This mouse doesn't work. Anyway, you see what I mean. But it is a nice way to kind of get together with friends, maybe something to do every once in a while. Where I live now in London, co-working spaces are also really, really expensive. So it's not the kind of option I go for usually. And then some people have an exotic home setup. At Toptal, we're actually quite almost competitive about our home setups. It's quite fun. People have really kind of doctored their homes. Some people have the standing desks, some people have the little stand things. I don't think this is a real desk. But I like what this person's done with it. So you see they've got the comfy chair, they've got the 2 screens, they've got the exotic aquarium view to be soothing and help you with concentration. Whatever your setup, make sure you get it at home, and it's a nice way to get your work done. So, oops. Having said that, no matter how nice your setup is, you have to get out of the house. If you're remote, you're not commuting, right? That means that you're actually there's a risk of being slightly unhealthy because you're not getting up and moving. But also, if you're not getting up and moving, you're literally not seeing people. And that's really bad. So get up and get out of the house at least once a day, even if it's cold and miserable outside. You got to get out the house. So something I like to do is just go for a walk. I just like get up and go for a walk. And then because I like to think ahead and plan, I'll be like, okay, now I'm out, I'm gonna buy my groceries and I'm gonna have that for lunch. It's gonna be healthy, it's gonna be great. So, you know, you can incorporate your everyday to-do tasks with your walk. And if you're worried about like people saying, where are you? I actually just leave a note in my calendar that says like, I've gone out or I'm having lunch. And I might update Slack with like a little walking emoji, something like that. Co-working days are a nice way to get together. So this is a photo of a co-working day we had recently in Sarajevo. And it was really fun. We invited a whole bunch of Toptalers. We hired a professional photographer, which is something we do sometimes because professional headshots make your resumes sparkle. And we also try and have professional development sessions as well. So we'll do like workshops or goal setting. So it's more than just getting together and working. It's like we're helping you grow in some way. But yeah, they're a really great way to get together, get out the house. And we're actually having one on Monday at, let's see if I remember this, Kto Takoje John Galt. Do you guys know it?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so if you're interested in coming, it's totally open. Please come join us on Monday. The co-working will be 10 till 6, and then 6 till 7, we're gonna have a demo session. So if your Toptalers will come and showcase the cool stuff they're working on, everyone is welcome. If you can't remember that, come see me at the end, or if you find anyone in a Toptal t-shirt, just go ask them and they'll tell you the details. So, time zones. If you're working remote, you may well come across people in different time zones, and this can be challenging, but doable, right? So, one thing I would say is whatever time zone you're in, you probably have flexible hours, make sure you go to your meetings. Your meetings are the most important thing. That's when you're with your team, that's when you gel and bond, and so that's your main priority. Also, when you're setting meetings with people, be considerate of their time zone. I work with a lot of people out in San Francisco, and sometimes they forget where I am, and they'll like schedule a meeting at 2 in the morning my time, and I'm like, you know, I'd love to go, but that's a bit late for me. Like, check my calendar, that kind of thing. So you should be considerate of that. And there's some great tools. So something I absolutely live by is World Time Buddy. It's amazing. You can just put the cities in, and then there's a little thing that shows you the time in all the cities. And then there's another extension I use called Amazing Clock, and it is pretty amazing. No, Awesome Clock. And it's just an extension, so you just click on it and it comes down and it shows you lots of different clocks. So you don't even have to leave your tab. You don't even have to leave what you're doing. You can just concentrate and see the time, book that meeting, done. And one last note on meetings. If you are working with clients in the Americas, daylight savings time can be quite complicated. So in Europe, we just had this, right? In Europe, daylight saving time starts 2 weeks before in the Americas. So there's about 2 weeks of complete chaos, to be honest, because if you have a regular meeting, the time will change, and so there might be clashes, there might be that kind of thing. The way to get around that is to have everyone on your team set their calendars to the same time zone. So if you set all your calendars to Belarusian time, then they will all kind of move together like that, and it will solve any sort of problems like that. One thing I would say is whatever time zone you're in, make sure that you work at least 4 hours overlap with your clients. That way you can do all the communication you need to do. And actually, it's quite nice to have 4 hours of not communicating, because that's when you can get your head down and do the strategic work, right? I was going to say something else about this. Yeah. If you're traveling or in an awkward time zone, consider splitting your day. So when I go to Hong Kong for the holidays, it's significantly far ahead of Europe, and I'm the Europe lead, so I have to be there in Europe time. So what I do is I get up in the morning, check Slack, check my emails, make sure everyone's okay, everyone's happy, great. And then I go and do my day. And then I start work again in the afternoon. And so it's nice because you kind of have a few different touch points, and it gives me the flexibility to do my day and do whatever I need to do, and still have the overlap with the people who need me in Europe. Work-life balance. So if you are working remote, it's pretty amazing. I know that a lot of, more than a third of Toptalers are parents, and they are freelancers because it gives you that flexibility to kind of look after your children and have a really good home life. But it does take a little bit of planning, and also setting boundaries. I think this is really important, actually, because it's very easy for your work life to bleed into your home life if you let it. So a good way to set boundaries is to have solid working hours. So as I said, I'm quite boring. I just work like 10 to 6, something like that. And after 6, I turn my notifications off. I'm done, goodbye, see you tomorrow. I know that if something's really urgent, people can call me, and then I'll pick up the phone and deal with it, but it's probably going to be okay. And at the weekends as well, I turn my notifications off. I really do try and have those boundaries. Physical boundaries are actually quite good as well. There are certain places in the home that are good for working and certain places that are not. And by that I mean your bed. It is very tempting to work in bed. Trust me, it really is. It's so nice and warm in there. You've just woken up and you're like, oh, I'll do that, I'll do that. Before you know it, you've been in bed working for 3 hours. Not a good look. It's not good for you. It's not good for your back. It's not good for anything. So what I like to do is I have my table. I go to my table, I do my work. That's my work table. I have my seat at the table. Everyone has different things. Some people have their own home offices. If you do have a home office, or let's say you share your home with family or friends or whatever, another good idea is to let them know that when you're in your office, you're working. Just because you're working remote doesn't mean you can go pick up the kids, or you can do this or that in the middle of the day. You need to let them know that this is your job, this is your livelihood, and you can't just have interruptions here or there. I'm really strict about this, but it works. So, I've explained the basic tenets of being a good remote worker. Why not take it one further and try out digital nomadism? So yeah, here's some photos from this year, actually, being digital nomads. We did this big trip around Bulgaria. We traveled all over the place. It was pretty great. And I'd say there's 2 types of digital nomads. Quick question, how much time do I have?
40 minutes at all.
Okay, got it. So there's 2 types of digital nomad, I would say. There's the people who have a base, and they work remote, so they have their base, and then they kind of travel. So my colleague Ines and her husband Damir, who both work for Toptal, have this fabulous life where they live at home in Sarajevo for a month, and then they go to Thailand for a month. And then they go home to Sarajevo for a month, and then they go to Japan for a month. And it's really great. The only downside is they have cats, which is the constant struggle in their life, finding people to look after the cats. So they're one type of digital nomad. Then there's the other type, more like me, people who just kind of don't really have a base. Since I started at Toptal about 1.5 years ago, I haven't really lived anywhere. And I thought adjusting to this lifestyle from having an apartment in New York and being very settled to just being everywhere would be challenging, but it actually wasn't too bad. There's a little bit of planning, which I will take you through, some cheeky tips and tricks. So, if you are thinking of doing it, make a plan. So figure out not just a country you'd like to go to, but a region. Because guaranteed, once you go to that country, you're going to be like, oh, but there's this and that and this and that and that and that, and I'm going to do all these things. So figure out the region you're interested in, and start doing research. So I usually go on WikiTravel, and then I look up newspaper articles on various things, and then I look at various travel blogs and communities. I'm very lucky because I have Toptal, so I'll go into the channel of the country and say hey, I'm interested in going to Berlin. I know there's Airbnb, but do you have your own long-term accommodation service? Because every country has its own nuances. I might ask on Facebook, hey, I'm going to Helsinki soon, who's around? And usually people are like, oh yeah, I'm here. So make that plan. And then once you've made the plan, start to save up. It's good to have savings. Savings of money and also savings of work. I think it's a good idea to have 2 months of work in advance ready. And if you're traveling with a family, 4 to 6 months of work. You can never, it depends case by case, but you can never be too careful, right? And so when you're out, traveling, you're going to be encountering all sorts of different things. The last thing you want to do is be worrying about money or finding new work while you're dealing with adjusting to a new culture and a new way of life, all that kind of thing. And also, you should definitely look at the budgets. So the Big Mac Index is quite a good way of seeing how expensive a country is. And you can also just go on Airbnb or Booking.com and click around and just see the costs for accommodation, figure out how long you can stay there, that kind of thing. Get your documents in order. This is very important. Each country is different. I don't know what it will be for Belarus. I'm assuming most of you are from Belarus, right? Hands up if you're from Belarus. Okay. So yeah, I can't speak to what the details are, but your government website, I'm sure, will have details of every single country. Some tips, though, I would say are make sure your passport has at least 6 months in advance because they might not let you into the country otherwise. Make sure you have free pages in your passport. If you've got even one stamp on your passport, they won't put a visa in it. I have learned that the hard way. I nearly got kicked out of Armenia because I got there and I didn't have any pages in my passport, so they just like stuck it on kind of an official page that you're not meant to have things on, but they let me in, it's fine. Still, not ideal, don't do that. What else? Something else I like to do is just carry passport photos of me. I usually have like 2 with me at any time, and this is really helpful in case I need them at the border or whatever. Get savvy. So it's very, very easy to waste a lot of money on transaction fees, especially if you're traveling internationally. And you just don't need to do that. So again, I can't really speak to Belarus, but research credit cards or bank services that allow you to move your money easily and cheaply. It'll definitely work out in the long run. Read reviews. Another thing I've learned the hard way. Any sort of thing you're doing, I would recommend reading the reviews, but I'm thinking here, especially for accommodation. So Airbnb, Booking.com, whatever it is, read the reviews. Something I like to do is I will search in the reviews for Wi-Fi strength and if they have any bugs. Because you definitely want to avoid that and you want to make sure the Wi-Fi is good. And something I do as well is when I'm talking with the Airbnb host, for instance, I'll say, how's the Wi-Fi? And they might, if they say it's great, I'm like, okay, cool. If they're kind of like, meh, I'm like, okay, go to speedtest.net, and now I want you to take a screenshot of the speed test and send it to me, and then we'll talk. Usually they're quite accommodating, but this is your livelihood. You have to make sure you've got good internet. Always make sure you have a plan B. So this can be for a variety of things. So let's say your laptop gets stolen or broken, God forbid. But let's say it happens. What are you going to do? Do you have enough facilities on your phone to get work done? Do you know if there's like, I don't know, let's say you're using Apple products, an Apple store in the city where you can buy a new laptop? Do you have a plan? Same for internet. Always get a mobile SIM card. And so if the internet doesn't work where you are, you can at least keep it going on your phone. You can get portable internet, which is something I'm just discovering, but I think it sounds good. And my colleague Dima actually, where is Dima? Ah, there he is. He had a good tip yesterday. He told me to bring Ethernet cables.
Yeah, but that works sometimes.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi is not good with your walls.
Yeah, so you can never be too careful about that. In terms of kind of your own safety, I also, in case like something does get stolen, I've never had anything stolen by the way, but maybe I'm a bit paranoid. I keep like some dollars. US dollars are useful because in every country they're useful, in some weird place in my suitcase or like in a sock. So I just keep that safe and somewhere where someone probably won't steal it. So if anything bad does happen, I've got like a little bit of something to keep me going, but that's just worst case scenario. You'll probably be fine. But yeah, be safe. So before you go somewhere new, read up on local laws. Wikitravel is actually really good for this. They generally will have a thing about customs and like what people are like, what is legal, what's not legal. But yeah, just make sure you're not doing anything illegal. You probably won't be, but it's always good to check. And also make sure you have travel and health insurance. It's kind of interesting. I always get travel insurance, but then we were talking on Slack recently about it, and it turns out so many people don't. Do you guys get health insurance or travel insurance when you travel? Yeah. Yeah, Francis is like, meh, maybe. You're one of those people. Yeah. Well, I always do it. It's always helpful. And another good thing is to try and like make sure you have a contact everywhere you go. Not too difficult, but you know, just in case anything does go wrong. But you probably will be fine. Pack light. This is something I feel extremely strongly about and can talk about at length. I'm really Spartan. I just have like a little hand carry wheelie bag. It's got the 4 wheels, so I can just really, really easy speed around. And I love this. Even if it's like a 6-month trip, I have this one bag. And it's great because you can be really fast and efficient. You can do online check-in, then you just breeze through immigration, breeze through security, and then you're on the airplane and you have your bag really near you. And as soon as you're done, you can just go off that airplane and get on with your life. If you check in your bag, there's a risk it might get lost. This has happened to me numerous times. Basically, as long as the bag is in your sight, it's going to be fine. So I always try and have it in my sight. It also slows you down, so that kind of thing I think is really good for speed. Packing light, I tend to actually only fill my suitcase halfway for a number of reasons. One, often I'm carrying Toptal swag everywhere. But two, it means that you can buy cool stuff. If you're going somewhere really interesting, guaranteed you're gonna see some cool things you wanna get. Even if it's for you, whatever. But I also buy my Christmas presents. I start buying them in March. Because if I'm somewhere interesting, I was in Bulgaria recently, in Romania, I saw all this amazing stuff. My family live in Hong Kong, this is very exotic to them. So I bought all these things and I've been buying stuff here. It's exciting. So that's another reason to pack light. As I said, I have a lot of opinions on this, so if anyone is curious, feel free to reach out to me and I can give you lots of tips on how to kind of be very effective with what you're packing. Be kind to yourself. So if you're traveling for a long time, you might not realize, but you're probably going to get really tired. And be nice to yourself. Maybe once in a while check into a really nice hotel. Or if you don't feel like doing that, just have a really nice coffee. Another thing is be kind to yourself with your travel. Let's say there's 2 flights and one is 50 euros cheaper, but has some nasty connection at 2 in the morning. Don't take that flight. It's not worth it. Pay a bit more, be comfortable. Ooh. So use your networks. I know I've said this a few times, but they are really valuable. So at Toptal, I'm always kind of connecting people when I hear they're going abroad, that kind of thing. And it's funny, Toptal, it's great. We have Slack and it's kind of like a professional development thing. I've heard people call it their own personal Stack Overflow, because if you ask a question at, 4 in the morning Belarus time, someone's going to be awake in Australia or San Francisco and they're top 3% and they're going to help you solve that problem. But it's also very good for travel. I heard this story last week, it's amazing. There was a guy traveling in Peru and I'm not entirely sure what happened, but basically his laptop went missing. In fact, I think everything went missing. I think it was quite bad. And he was obviously really upset and really panicked. He didn't know what to do. He messaged someone at Toptal and they were like, okay, yeah, we've got someone in Lima who can help you. Within 10 minutes, this person from Lima had contacted him and was like, hey, I heard you're in trouble, you're a Toptaler, what do you need, what can I do? And he told him what he needed, he helped him get it, and I think it really, really helped the situation and made this guy feel a lot more safe and secure and like he knew an insider. So it's pretty helpful like that. I wanted to include this because, oh, you can't see, I think that is the laptop that got stolen. So yeah, he was hiking Machu Picchu. Maybe it just fell off, who knows? But anyway, these are some photos from one of our Slack channels, Working Like a Boss. I love it. Basically, people just showcase where they're working that day. And one of my favorite things to do is just say, right, where is everyone today? And then people send in these beautiful photos. So that was in New York, that was in Vietnam, that's Peru. This is our head of operations playing polo in Florida, because why not? It's really nice. So my final thought is just go for it. If you're actually thinking about it, if it's something you've been considering, there really is no time like the present, just do it. Because if you wait, and if you dither, and if you kind of think about it that little bit too much, the opportunity will pass you and you won't be able to do it. Remember, I keep saying use your networks, and now your network is one person bigger. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm really friendly, and I'm more than happy to help people take control of their lives and live the best lives they can by being remote or digital nomads. So with that, Jacque. And yeah, here are my contact details. Feel free to take a picture, save it for later, reach out to me. And if you'd like to know details of the co-working day, shoot me an email or tweet and I can send you the official link.
Cool, thank you. So we have 10 minutes for questions. If you want to ask questions in Russian, it's okay. I will help you to translate. For Asia,
Спасибо.
so yeah. Are there any questions for Asia? Okay, let me begin. I have one. Have you ever felt tired of traveling a lot? So is it cool for much amount of time to travel?
I guess there are times when I go really intense. And then I'm like, okay, I'm done for a bit. But then as soon as I'm back in London, I'm like, wait, what am I doing here? I have to go again. But yeah, we had, in September, we sponsored 3 conferences and 3 weekends in a row. So we sponsored Eurocode, and then WebCamp Zagreb, and then GDG DevFest Ukraine. And it was wonderful, and we had a great time and met lots of great people. But by the end of it, working 3 weekends in a row, I was very tired and just wanted to be home and in a place where I knew the internet was stable and everything was easy and I knew what to do. But that lasted, I'm not kidding, like 3 days. And then I was like, let's go, planning my next trip.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, any more questions? Yeah, please.
I have a question about your vacation. Do you have any vacation at all? Vacation. Just guessing.
So I guess I'm growing up and I have a tiny bit of a location now. I have a place in London, but I'm there very, very infrequently. I was there, the longest I've spent there this year was 3 weeks. And that was just now. I spent 3 weeks in London. It was crazy. And then I'm back for a week after this trip, and then I'm going to Asia and the Middle East for a month and a half. And then, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Any more? Once again, you can ask in Russian. Вы можете спрашивать на русском. Я переведу.
Где вы начали изучать русский язык?
We started to
Я
learn
училась.
Russian language. Okay, you don't need any help.
Я училась русский язык в университете в Англии, в Манчестере. И потом я жила в Ярославле через 6 месяцев.
That's cool.
Спасибо. Но я училась 8 лет назад, поэтому я почти весь забыла.
Забыла. This is not the same, забила.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh God, what did I just say?
Okay.
I don't even want to know.
Yeah, I would say the information about your demo day for the audience in Russian once again.
Okay.
So yeah, в понедельник в Coworking «Кто такой Джон Голд» Toptal будет проводить свой demo day. Он будет проходить с 10 до 6. Точнее, с 10 до 6 будет проходить Coworking Day, и с 6 до 7 будет проходить Demo Day, где несколько коллег Asia соберутся и продемонстрируют проекты, над которыми будут работать. Это для тех, кто не понял во время разговора. Вот. Есть еще вопросы? Any questions?
Я хочу сказать что-то.
Если вы хотите принимать, фотографировать этого,
И я могу послать вам сообщение с информацией о Coworking Day и Demo Night.
Окей. Сфотографируйте, свяжитесь, вам отправят сообщение. Cool. Thank you.